Outer Orange.
Today it is time. It is time for some Sanguine. There's been some discussion about Sanguine. I ain't gonna lie, y'all. Come here, real quick. I thought this deck sucked, but this deck doesn't suck in theory. It's hard to explain, but I've actually been testing this deck basically since the set dropped. I got my cards pretty early on to test. I tested a lot, spent a lot of time with my boyfriend. Heck, me and my boyfriend also theory crafted this deck a lot. We've sent a lot of deck lists back and forth of tags, ideas, thoughts, how to build it. Do we put the silence package in? Do we not put the silence package in? And long story short, I think in the last week or so, I think I personally came up with the list that I like. But here we actually have a match of Sanguine into Thief Sword, and you get to see just how fast this deck is. I will say when it breaks, this you kind of see the other end of it. But still, this is a really good match against one of my friends who recently got back into Shadowverse. He's really big into Sword. He just got back about like 2 weeks ago. He's still kind of figuring out how to deal with like trading and stuff like that. But actually, I've been very impressed with him. We've been playing the last 2 days, and he has been doing really well as a player. So but he also plays other card games. He's performed well in other card games too. So it's not too surprising. But anyway, let's go ahead and watch this. It's just a really fun match. And again, thank you to the people that let me record. I always appreciate it. So let's go ahead and watch this. All right, so I won the dice roll, and I actually chose to go first in this matchup. I wasn't sure if it was a good idea or not, but I decided to just take it anyway. I did open a really good hand. It's all 1-drops here, and I start off with the Strike Girl. Basically, on place we both take a damage, and then on strike she takes a damage, and I take she gives the opponent damage, and I take a damage. Very good opener, by the way, to start out with. And he basically had me mill a card off of his 1-drop effect. Here I go striking. So basically on strike he takes 2 and I take 1, and it took me a second, and I accidentally messed it up. And it took me a second to figure out that actually on strike she also had a Sanguine ability, and I realized that I think like as I reread her and I was like, oh yeah, she does have it. I just kept forgetting. Some cards have it, some cards don't. I was like, I also take a damage. I had to like double check it just to be sure, because I misread that card a lot. I don't know why. But anyway, I still had 1 more mana to work with since I went first. So since I had Sanguine active, I chose to give that I chose to go into the Skeleton Fighter, and I gave it a 3/3. By the way, this is an insanely really good starting point, especially going first. This is a very nutty combo because that means they have to answer 2. And then on top of that, I also had another 1-drop that also makes us take both the damage. That's what I did there. But this is probably the best opener you could possibly open. It's 3 very good cards. 3 very different 1-drops, all very strong, especially if you open them in the correct order. So this is just a very high roll. Now here he dropped the this is the Omen, and she makes me mill, so that makes the 1-drop get more power. Now I did notice something. Sword actually has a lot of two defensive type of deck cards that are really strong. And I was rereading my order, and I mean my spell, and I was realizing that actually I can nuke some of the Omens and stuff like that. But I was basically trying to figure out what approach I wanted to go for with my 3 mana. So first I swing, basically dealing him 2, dealing me 1. And then I'm like, okay, still have a lot of options here. By the way, I have currently present 6 damage on the board, technically 7 if you include the strike ability. But a lot to work with, but they are 1-drops, and cards like Fina basically knock these cards out. But luckily enough, I don't think he opened Fina this game, so which was a good help for me. So I was rereading the card. The spell, the 1-drop, basically lets you choose up to 2 effects, has 3 effects on it, and I think I chose 1 because I didn't want to deal myself too much damage, but I still wanted to do some damage. I also didn't have the Omen of Bliss on the board, so it made no sense for me to basically do it twice. But first, basically, I was like, let me just think how through like what I want to do here, because I had a couple options. I decided to play the Skeleton Fighter and also make him a 3/3, which, by the way, again, insanely good cards to draw into here. This is a very lethal board, and I think my Thief Sword player was like, holy crap, what is going on right now? Am I about to just die? So I'm explaining the spell because it says choose up to 2, so I don't have to, you know, do all 3. So basically the one I was choosing, I was trying to explain to him, was the one that like deals something 2 damage, and then I deal myself the damage. So I'm gonna basically target the big dude, and I was gonna give myself a damage. I wasn't gonna do the other effects because, for 1, they weren't really doing me much, and 2, it didn't make sense. One of the effects is like you deal yourself damage, draw a card, discard. I only had 1 card in hand, so I was like, I think I'm fine. So basically, I just swing in here. It takes another 3, and then I swing again for another 2, putting him to 9, and then I play Dire Bond and basically deal a damage just so I can draw. Very strong cards. Actually, a card I was debating on for a while if I should run her or not. I kept putting her in and out of my deck, but the draw does matter. Sometimes you don't want to draw if you play Jerry, which I do play Jerry, but also sometimes you do need to just that 1 extra draw deeper will change you from like being in a bad position to a good position. So here he plays the Omen into the Evolve. He didn't have his Evolve, but it's just the Evolve form. Basically, he gets to just grab anything from my drop, but sadly, most of the cards just deal damage. So there's nothing really good for him to grab, and honestly, in theory, if you know Sanguine, you know the revival doesn't really happen too often aside from the Omen of Lust. Right now, I'm presenting lethal. There's 4, 7, 8, exactly 9 damage on the board, so I am presenting lethal, and I believe I drew into a Dark General, I believe her name is. It's the 5/5 forward drop that basically has Storm if you have Sanguine active. So I think that's what I drew into. So I knew for a fact that even if it pops something, I'm going to be in a good position. So here he goes for Fina. He basically chooses to kill my Skeleton Fighter, which is reasonable. It was between the Skeleton Fighter and the 1-drop that gets Sanguine active. So here he basically goes in, basically killing off both my Skeleton Fighters. Very good approach. It's honestly, it was his out because he needed to make sure that my board wasn't lethal anymore. I think I was counting the math of if I had lethal or not for like a second here, as long as he doesn't kill it. So I basically attack on strike, I deal 1, and then another extra 1 playing with 7, I deal 2. And because Sanguine was active for 4 mana, I dropped the Dark General. It's 3 for 5. And he was like, "Yep, that's game. That's game." He was like, "Damn," because he was thinking through what to do. He was kind of explaining to me, sort of like what he was thinking of to do with like this, because he could have used this to kind of knock me down on health a little bit there. He also didn't know that I had a spell that can kind of nuke cards like that, especially since he's not too familiar with this deck as he would be with other Abyss decks, which is understandable. It was very stable. I was also explaining to him that there was a world where he could have killed this card just so I wouldn't get Sanguine active. It would have given him 1 turn to live, killed her, and killed one of my Skeleton Fighters. But then my other Skeleton Fighter was a 3, and then this was a 2, which was 5 damage. And then I would have had to go into the Ghost play. I would have evolved the Ghost, which would have been 8 health total off from him. I don't know if it would have been enough for him to kill me, because he would have basically had to storm into death. But theoretically speaking, he definitely should have went after this. And for future people that are playing into this deck, this is definitely the card you usually want to kill because she activates Sanguine. These other cards are like on play basically. The only other way I could have activated Sanguine is through her, but if she costs 2 mana to get the Sanguine to go live, so I wouldn't be able to play the Dark General. Chances are what I would have done is I probably would have swung, evolved the other card I had, the one that gets the ghost, and then I would have put it into 1, and then next turn I would have probably popped this and then maybe drew into something better for Dark General. Because the issue with this is that I get she's a more 4-cost play, and this requires 2 mana to kill off, so it means I need 6 mana to do this play if I don't have Sanguine active any other way. That's basically that would have been the better solution, but also in his head, there was 2 Skeleton Fighters. They're both 3/3s. They're both doing 6 damage total, so it makes sense to get rid of the 6 damage. And obviously, like, he had to assume that I didn't have a way to kill him, like, on my curve, especially at 4 mana, by the way. At 4 mana, usually people don't just randomly deal you, like, 10 damage, right? That doesn't usually happen, but this deck is definitely very unique to being able to do stuff like that. And it's really rare. Like I said, I've definitely hit the full nut here, but it does happen. When this deck hits the full nut, it's very insane. Him and I did play a couple games prior, and I was on Sanguine for a little bit, and there was games where I finished off on Jerry instead of her, and I was actually even explaining to him that the win con basically is usually the Dark General with the 1-drops, or calling the 1-drops and then playing Jerry for finisher. So that's basically kind of the 2 approaches you have for this deck, and both are scary. I ain't gonna lie. I will say decks that have the Lyell active, the girl that has a 2/5 that basically negates burn, is definitely a way to play around this deck. So just something to kind of keep because this deck does a lot of burning through the spells and through like cards like these. So if you can negate yourself from getting burnt down, this deck gets a lot worse. So something to keep in mind. Anyway, that's basically the video for this. I just want to show you guys Sanguine. Sanguine is definitely a bit of an underrepresented deck, I would say, right now. There has been more people talking about it, and I've even made tweets about it recently saying like, hey, I'm wrong. This deck actually isn't that bad, because I originally made an early meta tweet saying like, hey, this is what I think the meta is shaping up to be, and I put Sanguine pretty low on the list of my thoughts, and after testing it more, I realized I was like, this deck has potential. I will say it's definitely a high roll deck. It's definitely one of those decks where you're just beating face and hoping for the best. You're really relying on your draws. Hope you guys enjoy that. Other than that, guys, shop, code ORANGE if you need any of your goodies. Shop with him. Very awesome stuff on there. He's got a brand new website. I talked about it in the past, but we'll talk about it again this time around. Brand new website, lots of cool stuff on there, so you can check all that out. Other than that, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and head out. So peace out. Das vidania. I'll see you guys in a future video. Bye!